Hello everyone and welcome to the walkthrough of my latest project, recreating the Tenet building explosion. The main goal here was to recreate that iconic sequence from Tenet. I actually tried tackling this project last year, but I lacked the hardware and the technical knowledge to pull it off. I ended up not publishing it because it simply wasn't up to the standard I wanted. So, I gave myself some time to level up my skills. Now that I have a much deeper understanding of RBD and smoke simulations, I've managed to get a significantly better result. When I first started this project, as you can see, I ran an initial fracture and explosion test, but I just wasn't happy with it. The workflow I was using was too restrictive. It didn't give me enough control over the building, the fracturing process, or the overall look of the explosion. Because of that, I came up with a different approach. First, I split the building into a top section and a bottom section, right where the explosions take place. This allows me to control both areas completely independently. Next, for the fracturing process, I isolated the building into specific pieces, side sections, stairs, walls, and so on. This brings me a lot of control. For instance, if I need certain areas to shatter more heavily, I can do it without affecting the rest of the geometry. To do this, I scatter some points onto the geometry, randomize their orientation, and use a copy to points to distribute a grid displaced with a mounting node. Then I use a boolean on the original piece to clean up the parts of the grid I don't need, and finally apply a boolean fracture to the original pieces. This is what the entire building setup looks like once everything is fractured. Moving on the RBD simulation, I set up all the necessary constraints, piece to piece, group to group, and one specifically to bind the top and the bottom halves together. To drive the simulation, I extracted the velocity from a Pyro burst source and used it as an input for the RBD solver. As for the explosions, once the RBD simulation was baked, I fed it into the explosion setup, so the rigid bodies would properly interact with the fire and smoke. For the smoke itself, I took a slightly different approach. I cooled the chunks that had almost no velocity by calculating their vector length. I also deleted any pieces that were off camera to optimize the scene, as well as some of the fastest moving debris. Finally, I created a gradient for the bottom explosion, so the smoke will fade in progressively as the building collapsed, mimicking how it behaves in reality. Then I just input into the Pyro solver and redirect the shape of the smoke. I file cache everything and then input into a Retiming node. My plan from the start was to blend between two setups, one containing the top simulation and one for the bottom. To do this, I animated the retimes to match the timing and keyframe the switch node accordingly. Quick tip here: if you are retiming volumes, make sure to go to the volume tab on the retime node and set it up just like this. If you don't, your volumes will start glitching and doing weird things. Besides that, I also built a small turbine that is visible in shot 2, along with the two missile trails that triggered the explosion, both of which were also animated using a retime node. Finally, all that was left was bringing everything into a stage contest, applying textures and lighting the scene. I also brought in some props that were close to the camera in the original movie reference. If I had matched the reference camera exactly, a lot of those details would have been lost. And that's a wrap. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.